Pull up those water guns because you're about to be diving into the card pool. I'm your host, Stu Galetta.
And I'm Kyle Robertson.
And today we are talking about the top 10 money cards of Mercadian Masques.
This is part 2 of our 2-part set review. If you want to see some of the hidden gems we found from Mercadian Masques, be sure to check out part 1 as well. But without further ado, let's get on to today's review. Now we're going to go into our top 10 money cards of Mercadian Masques. And first up, we have the around $97 land, Rishadan Port. It taps to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool, and also for 1 additional mana, it taps to tap another target land. Now, the reason why this is so expensive is because, number 1, it was only ever printed in Mercadian Masques and has never been reprinted since, but also just because of the level of competitive play it saw, and it still sees some casual play today. A lot of people who are really serious about playing Magic have this in their commander decks and whatnot. Tapping down another land for this little is actually an incredibly good deal. And when this card was in competitive play, people had 4 of it in every single deck, and you can understand why. So looking at this card now, the designers have said actually point blank that Rishadan Port is of a power level that they would probably never ever make again. And as I said, looking at the card, I think that's kind of understandable, hence why it has such a hefty price tag.
Yeah, if an opponent has like a Gaia's Cradle and is looking to abuse it, making it so they can't is a huge hit to their game plan. Now, for number 2 in our spot, we have Food Chain. Now, this is a 3-drop enchantment for the lovely price of $32. You can remove a creature you control from the game and add X mana to your mana pool, where X is the removed creature's converted mana cost plus 1. This mana may be spent to only use on creature spells. So inherently what this thing does is it makes it so you can sacrifice any creature at any point to get mana for it. And the reason why it warrants this kind of price tag is if you have a board wipe, but you have a good board state, but you really need to hit like all your opponent's creatures, you can quickly sacrifice them all and make it so that you can then go and regrow your field where your opponents can't.
And now, Food Chain is the stuff that infinite combo dreams are made of everywhere, and so because it adds 1 extra mana, this is just, the potential for abuse is just there so highly, and it infinite combos with many cards, even with a exile trigger instead of general sacrificing. It combos with a bunch of cards like Misthollow Griffin, Torrent Elemental, and basically you can get infinite mana off these cards. Food Chain is an infinite mana generator, combo potential very high, hence its price tag. Next up, at the number 3 slot, we have Bribery, which is an around $10 or $11 card. Bribery is a 5-mana blue sorcery in which you can search target opponent's deck for any creature and put it into play under your control. There's been a lot of different variations on this effect throughout the years, most notably the about $1 card Acquire from the Mirrodin block that lets you steal any artifact from your opponents. And while that can also be pretty good at times, stealing creatures is generally a lot more broken, and I really can't think of anything more evil yet fun than stealing your opponent's best creature and using it against them in this kind of manner.
It's such a good card, especially it's only 5 mana. So if you get an explosive turn and can make it so you have 5 mana on turn 3, let alone turn 2, and you find a Blightsteel Colossus in your opponent's deck, for them to have an answer and response, like the mana to respond to that, is such a small timing that they could get an easy loss to the game. Now, in our number 4 spot, warranting the lovely price of around $9, is Unmask. It is a 4-drop sorcery, 3 and a black. You may remove a black card from your hand instead of playing this card's cost. Look at target player's hand and choose a non-land card from it. That player discards it. So the reason why this is good is the same reason why Force of Will is good. You can get around the mana cost. You don't have to, but you can. And being able for no mana inherently to make a player lose a combo piece or a vital card that they need at that turn is really, really good and really powerful.
Yeah, these free costing spells have generally been really, really good over the years, and this one doesn't see all that much play anymore, but when it was legal competitively, it saw a lot of play back in the day, you better believe it. And nowadays, there are better discard spells out there that may not be free, but they cost very little. Inquisition of Kozilek and what have you. But for the time, this was very powerful. It still is kind of powerful because it lets you see another player's entire hand. So the reason why, and again, never been reprinted, both reasons why this card has proven to have a sort of high price tag. Next up, at the $7 price tag range, we have another land, Dust Bowl, and I'm not really going to say too much about this one either, because looking at it, taps to give you colorless, doesn't enter the battlefield tapped, already pretty good at least, and then you can tap 3 and itself to sacrifice any one of your lands to destroy target non-basic land. There's a bit more limitations on this, so it's not maybe quite as good as, say, a strip mine, for example, but the fact that you can sacrifice other lands and not have to sacrifice just this one makes it repeatedly useful and therefore repeatedly good.
Yeah, definitely. Because, like you said with Strip Mine, it has to sacrifice itself to remove another land. This one can make it so if you want to lose this one, yeah, you can. But having the choice to keep it around for later games is phenomenal. Here at the number 6 spot, we have Magistrate Scepter, 3-drop artifact, and this lovely card here will cost you roughly around $4. For 4 mana, you can tap it and put a charge counter on the Scepter. And you can also tap it to remove 3 of the counters on there to take an additional turn after this one. Extra turns in Magic are essentially something that a lot of players love because they can be broken. And especially now with the new Atraxa Commander out, this card should be in more decks just for how easy it is to get another turn. Yeah, it takes a little time to grow, but if you have the right kind of proliferate stuff with it, you could inherently make it so you can get all 3 counters by the next time.
Yeah, mechanics like proliferate and then the pseudo proliferate that was kind of in the Kaladesh block for counter cards make this thing just a beast. Like you said, extra turns are broken, repeatable extra turns, and that ones that can be turned on this easily, especially so. No surprises here. So next up on the list, still at $5 surprisingly, although it's been reprinted a number of times in various different products, the enchantment Black Market. As the name suggests, it is a black enchantment, 5-drop. Whenever a creature dies, anyone's creature notably, you put a charge counter on Black Market, and then at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, generally when most people like to play things, you add black mana to your mana pool for each charge counter on Black Market. Obviously, repeatable mana generators, especially in colors that aren't green, turn out to be pretty darn useful, and Black Market is no exception in this case, because what does Black like to do? Sacrifice creatures, kill other people's creatures, kill your own creatures for profit, whatever you like. And Black Ramping has proven to be pretty good in the past. Black Market is one of the very best cards out there for this. It can generate monster amounts of mana very, very quickly.
And the important thing to also note is the counters don't get removed. You literally keep growing the counters and they snowball. So if this isn't taken off the field quick, yeah, you or an opponent is going to have so much mana that it's going to dwarf everyone else's at the table. So here at number 8, we had the lovely card Crackdown. It's a 3-drop enchantment in the white. Non-white creatures with power 3 or greater don't untap during their controller's untap steps. The power behind this card is great. It's just oppressive in the right ways, and white loves to take advantage of this. Just being able to make it so any kind of big fatties that come into play that are not white, so you can still run like your Sun Titans or your Elish Norns, and they're not hurt by this. But all your opponents who are using anything that has like any other color, even artifact creatures, they are just hurt. Like they have no reason to want to use their effects or attack.
I generally don't love these kinds of cards that only work with certain different types of colors and only work against certain opponents if they're not using those colors. However, I can still get behind them if the circumstances call for it, and if you're playing a mono-white deck, for example, obviously there is very, very little downside to a card like Crackdown. A classic prison card, an enchantment as well, which makes it somewhat more difficult to get rid of than most things. But overall, in the right deck, can pretty much be a showstopper. Coming in at number 9 at around $3 a pop, we have the enchantment Conspiracy, one of my very favorite cards ever printed in the history of Magic, because there are just so many cool applications for this. Again, a black enchantment, again a 5-drop. when it comes into play, you choose any creature type you want, anything you can think of. And creatures you own that are on the battlefield, creatures you own that aren't in play, aka your graveyard, your deck, your hand, everywhere, are the chosen type. So if you throw down Conspiracy and then you play a card that says, oh, I don't know, Tutor for a dragon from your deck, you can just go ahead and find pretty much any creature in your deck, regardless of whether it's a dragon or not. And that applies for any kind of tribal deck, really. This can turn any deck into a tribal deck, can really benefit a tribal deck by turning things that wouldn't normally benefit that tribe into things that benefit that tribe.
Yeah, like you said, Kyle, it really has aspects for where certain tribal decks are hurting. So, Reaper King, the example you gave, there's only been a handful of scarecrow creatures that have been put into the game. So, being able to use cards that aren't scarecrows but are great value makes it so that this card can give that kind of deck a lot more gas to get it to go forward. Here at the number 10 spot, we have Statecraft, a $2 enchantment that costs 4 mana, and it's blue. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by creatures you control. Pretty much if you need some sort of way to protect a permanent, so in my mind, planeswalkers are always susceptible for damage and attacks, and you need something out there to give them protection as like a wall, and you aren't using huge creatures that can survive. Statecraft can give them the protection that they need without making it so your board is empty every time. It can help you with a little bit form of protection both on your permanence and your life total.
I'm somewhat uncomfortable with this card in the sense that it only benefits you if you have creatures out and only works on your own creatures. I would much rather something like this blank combat damage dealt to or by your opponent's creatures. That's just me personally. But it certainly has its uses. Turning all your creatures into fog banks in the right situation can be kind of good, and while it also doesn't prevent against effect damage, aka red-based board wipes, it can still be pretty good against a deck that relies heavily on attacking in order to win the game.
So now after seeing the full review, we've seen the hidden gems, we've seen the money cards. So Kyle, let me know, where does this fall on the line for you?
And once again, just to clarify our rating scale, we rate sets on a scale from bronze at the bottom up to silver, gold, and platinum at the very top. Now, for me personally, I think Mercadian Masques is probably going to fall short of a platinum, but I'm going to settle on gold, because I feel like there's a lot of things in this set that, while they may not be absolutely incredible and amazing, that will be worth money forever and ever and ever, there's a lot of cool things in this set, all kinds of things that could potentially be gone back to and mined for future sets. I think there are a lot of interesting ideas, particularly the recruit mechanic with rebel creatures and mercenary creatures being able to summon out each other from the deck. I think that's a really good candidate to going back to at some point in the near future, and I feel the same about a lot of things for Mercadian Masques as well. Also, another portion of this is I like certain individual cards. Fountain Watch, I think, being one of the prime examples of this, a card that will probably hold its value, and I'm not sure if we're ever going to see something quite that powerful ever again, just from the time that it was made, I suppose. But for those reasons, and maybe others as well, I think I'm going to place Mercadian Masques solidly on the gold scale, because I think this set, while it may not become super more valuable than it is now, I think it will probably continue to hold its value for quite a while at least.
I have to agree with you, Kyle. I'm definitely giving Mercadian Masques a gold as well. I think it had a lot of great hidden potential that honestly surprised me. And some of the cards I really wanted to talk about, but I actually didn't make my list, were some of the cards that had alternative casting costs that were very similar to Force of Will, like as we see in our money spot with our black card, where it's like you can either pay the mana cost or you can cheat it out in some way. Cards like that always have value. It might not be the card that's perfect for your strategy, but it still is a force to be reckoned with. So for those kind of mechanics, the style, the spice, the flavor, I loved it. It's gold, and I would love to see more and more of these cards played. So that's our pool time today. If the water felt just right, be sure to check out our previous video in which we discussed the top 10 hidden gems that we found in this set.
Also, did you agree with our rating, or did you not? Let us know either way, either in the comments down below, or you can always hit us up on Twitter at MTGTheCardPool, or just email us at mtgthecardpool@gmail.com. I'm Kyle Robertson.
And I'm Stu Galetta. We'll see you next time at the Card Pool.